Welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com. What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Monday and Wednesday by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on allsteelers.com and also youtube.com/allsteelerstalk, and make sure you go subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, I know it's not essentially Pittsburgh Steelers talk, but it is Pittsburgh Steelers talk. The hottest topic in the AFC North is Lamar Jackson and what seems to be the downfall of the Baltimore Ravens, the impending doom over in Baltimore, making the road a lot easier for teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Meanwhile, there's a new linebacker available that the Pittsburgh Steelers could be interested in. And finally, our biggest takeaways from the NFL Combine and how things changed for the Pittsburgh Steelers draft board after Indianapolis. We got to start with Lamar Jackson, but first, it's not bad outside. It was beautiful yesterday. It was a great welcome home from Indianapolis. I usually ask, how are you? But I want to know, how was your time at your first NFL Combine?
It was great. I met some cool people, learned a lot of cool stuff, talked to some great football players, and just taking in that environment, really cool. The Combine is very, I don't know, it's so we went to the Senior Bowl, but I'd say the Combine is much more professional, I guess. It seems like things are just kind of taken to the next level. So it was really cool to be around that environment and be around all those people working at the NFL Combine, and it was a great first experience. So I'm really, really glad I got to go.
Yeah, the Combine, I love, don't get me wrong, the Senior Bowl is a good time, but I love the Combine. It's just a much different atmosphere, you know what I mean? First off, Indianapolis is filled with nothing but great dive bars and phenomenal steak restaurants. Although I came home and yesterday my brother is here. He came to visit, and I called him and I was like, "Hey, what do you guys want to eat once you get here?" He goes, maybe like just burgers or something." And I was like, "Awesome. Sounds good." My stomach at this point is just almost entirely red meat. I don't even know what a vegetable is. To top it off, we went mac and cheese with the burgers, which, certainly helped the cholesterol. I got to tell you, I'm going to go get a blood pressure test after Indianapolis. But overall, I love it out there. It's my favorite place to go visit. Every time I see like a comedian or something bag on it, I'm just like, nah, you guys are doing it wrong, because I love Indy. You got your first taste of St. Elmo's cocktail sauce. Yes. Didn't cry, which huge shout out to you. Most people, if you don't know what St. Elmo's cocktail sauce tastes like, we're not even going to tell you. Just
go taste it.
Yeah. Right. It's the
experience that. Yeah, you don't want to have a warning going into it. You don't want to know what you're getting into. You have to experience that. Yeah, just blindly.
Yeah, just walk into it and slap it in your mouth and be prepared for whatever happens.
Really load up on the cocktail sauce. If you get a shrimp cocktail, really load up on the sauce. It really makes the experience.
Yeah. I'm talking deep dip. Right in the mouth, no breath.
Just get a spoon, honestly. Just eat the sauce.
Eat the straight sauce. I agree. I agree. All right, let's talk Baltimore Ravens football here. Lamar Jackson, still no decision on his future. The franchise tag deadline is tomorrow, Tuesday, March 7th. There's reports from ESPN Jeremy Fowler that they're considering the non-exclusive franchise tag. At the same time, Tom Pelissero reported that Eric DeCosta, the GM of the Ravens, flew to Miami to speak with Lamar Jackson. And while that attempt was vigilant, they're still very far apart on a new deal. Lamar wants the guaranteed max, a Deshaun Watson type contract. The Ravens are not looking to follow suit with the Cleveland Browns. At the same time, the NFLPA reports have come out, and the Baltimore Ravens stuck out with one mark, and that is their training staff, giving them an F-. And then everybody and their mother went off on social media saying how their training staff ruined their careers and suffered setbacks and pushed them too hard and so on and so forth. And there was a bad relationship there. That guy has since been fired, but still not a good place to be for the Baltimore Ravens. And then finally, a wide receiver, Rashad Bateman, going off on GM Eric DeCosta, saying that he does not build a team around his players. We'll get to that. Let's start with Lamar Jackson. We are 24 hours away, essentially, from the franchise tag deadline. The Ravens are now considering the non-exclusive, which we have talked about before. Is it over? Can we look at it now and just say this is the beginning of the end? The Baltimore Ravens are going to lose Lamar Jackson, even if it's just for 2 first-round picks. And how bad of a move is that if you're Baltimore to just accept the fact that you're willing to let Lamar Jackson essentially walk away for a measly 2 first-rounders when quarterbacks these days, I mean, wide receivers are going for more than that these days, let alone an MVP caliber quarterback.
Right. It just seems like Baltimore's ready to cut their losses. I feel like this process has been drawn out. It's been difficult for both sides, and they've been kind of, what's the word? I just not on their game from the start, not ready to make this kind of a move from the start. It didn't look like they were, or didn't at least seem from my perspective like they were ever ready to get serious with Lamar Jackson, and give him the kind of money he deserves. And it's one thing if they weren't willing to pay what that guy's market value is, but I don't know. He deserves what he deserves, and they are going to, like you said, by the end of tomorrow, he could just be worth 2 first-round picks instead of much more. And they're selling him short, and they're putting themselves in a bad situation if they allow that to happen. If that non-exclusive tag goes on him, they've really fumbled every part of this instead of just some of it.
Yeah. That's exactly it. I think that things should have moved faster. Like, I'm not upset with the Baltimore Ravens for not being able to get a deal done, although get a deal done. It's Lamar Jackson. Like, stop trying to act as if this guy isn't an MVP quarterback. This guy could lead you to a Super Bowl. It's not your fault. And we'll get into the whole wide receiver thing here in a second. It's not your fault that it's not his fault that you have not built a team around this guy, or even tried to build a team around this guy in the last couple of years. And now you're looking at a situation where you're going, well, we're not going to go win a Super Bowl this season, most likely. So why would we waste all this money on Lamar Jackson? Or we have all these pieces that are still missing that we have to fill. We can't go waste all this money on a quarterback. Well, if you put the pieces together before this situation, you wouldn't have to worry about it. You would just be able to pay your quarterback like every other team in the NFL does year after year after year. This is not a new situation in the NFL. Every single season, quarterbacks are getting huge contracts and bigger contracts and guaranteed money. And I get it. Deshaun Watson set a terrible precedent. And if I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I don't want to set that either, but I'm going to get it as close as humanly possible without making it a trend for other teams to follow. I'm going to get Lamar Jackson as close to that guaranteed number to say, hey, look it, this is not a Deshaun Watson deal, but it's pretty close, even if he's getting paid more a season, if he's getting paid $50 million a season and they're not guaranteeing that whole thing, well, then at that point, you're good. You can make it work. The fact that they're just looking at it and saying, okay, well, we can't get a deal done because Lamar isn't willing to budge. And at the same time, we're not even going to try to trade this guy. We're just going to non-exclusive tag it and let somebody else set the market for us. I mean, at that point, you're either signing them or you're not. So you might as well cut your losses early. Go trade them. That's where I have a thing is to get 2 first-round draft picks for Lamar Jackson is such a loss. It's crazy. When you could get a Super Bowl out of this guy, or you could get enough compensation to where you could fix all the needs that you were complaining about and don't have now with one trade. Instead, you're just going to be like, you know what? Well, we'll just go draft another quarterback, and then we'll have one more pick to go, screw up on another wide receiver. That's just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with it. Just that they're not going to get this kind of half in, half out, no real solid plan about how they wanted to approach this offseason. Like there was no plan to approach Lamar's contract situation. It seemed like
Nope.
They knew they weren't, like, if they weren't going to give him what he wanted, they didn't have a contingency plan to try and negotiate with him. I guess, quite honestly, like it seemed like they were saying my way or the highway, and Lamar was also saying my way or the highway, and there was no budging. But then there was no contingency plan for when he said no and when he didn't budge. And I feel like this offseason for them has been a lot of just sitting around waiting for someone else to blink, for something good to fall into their lap instead of make something good happen. And it's what the
Is your
oh,
fire alarm going off?
yeah, I think so. One
Go check.
second.
Yeah, go check.
Sorry about
I might leave that in.
that. Okay.
All right, we were talking Lamar Jackson and the contingency plan.
Yeah, so there was no. Okay, you're not going to pay Lamar, but like you said, there's no. Like, why are you just willing to part with him for 2 first-round picks? This guy would have taken a haul, and instead, you're just going to sacrifice. You're going to sacrifice that haul for 2 first-round picks just to cut your lot. Like, I don't know. I feel like none of what the Ravens have done this offseason, their indecision and their lack of a plan entering this process has really cost them. And they're just been too quick to the draw to do anything.
Yeah, I agree. And now they're gonna suffer. We're coming down to the last 24 hours here. I don't expect anything to get done. I expect the non-exclusive tag to be placed on him, and then I mean, it's all bets are off at that moment. And you could talk about Aaron Rodgers, you could talk about Derek Carr, you could talk about whoever you want. Lamar Jackson immediately becomes the top target for any team looking for a quarterback on the free agency market, and they're all going to toss as much money as humanly possible at this guy to say, hey, like that's the thing. You let Lamar Jackson hit free agency, essentially, he's going to get so much more money than you were willing to pay him, because it goes right back to Deshaun Watson. He got way more money than anybody was willing to pay him because they had to bid on him. And if you do the same thing for Lamar Jackson, who's clearly better than Deshaun Watson, you're in trouble. It's over. It's coming to a close, and the Baltimore Ravens will have to search for a quarterback, and it just kind of depends on who signs him, because that's the other thing. If a team like the Jets sign him, who aren't in position to give the Baltimore Ravens a pick worthy of finding another quarterback, they are now looking for a new quarterback, and they don't have an answer for one, and that just makes their life 10 times more difficult. On top of that, this is a public service announcement. Manscaped now has beard products and is going even further with their brand new Weed Whacker 2.0. Go ahead and tell the world. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming are traveling north of your South Pole with their revolutionary grooming products. The new Weed Whacker 2.0 and their new beard line confirms they have all the best tools for your hygiene toolbox. Time for you to upgrade your game by going to manscaped.com and using our code STEELERS20 for 20% off plus free shipping. Gentlemen, meet the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. It is the ultimate package that makes it easier than ever to craft your signature look. It all starts with the cordless electric Beard Hedger. The hedger is tough on hair, but smooth on your face, leading to single stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. Its waterproof cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. The Pro Kit also comes with 4 dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care. This includes Manscaped's beard shampoo and conditioner, beard oil, and beard balm to moisturize, style, and shimmer your new beard. Plus, the kit has 3 free gifts: a beard brush, a comb, and with a nice beard, your face is perfectly groomed. Right? Wrong. You need to keep your eye out for those tough to trim ear and nose hairs. The brand new Weed Whacker 2.0 offers improved blades and skin-safe technology with no tugging guaranteed. It's never been so painless to mind your manholes. Now that you have the face looking great, you must try Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0 for the full body grooming experience. Good news, the Performance Package 4.0 now comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0 and all of their other below-the-waist grooming products Manscaped is known for. Your significant other will be delighted to see you're covering all the bases, if you know what I mean. So, get 20% off and free shipping with our code STEELERS20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and just use our code Steelers20. Always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. The rest of the team is falling apart by the moment. And while we were in Indianapolis, the report cards dropped, and I do want to talk about that. But let's talk about Rashad Bateman. Coming out, Eric DaCosta was asked about problems drafting wide receivers. And he goes, if I had an answer, that would probably mean I would have some better receivers. We're going to keep swinging. There have been some guys that have been successful players for us that were draft picks. We never really hit on that. And then Rashad Bateman was just like, how about you play your players' strengths and stop pointing the finger at us and number 8. Blame the one you let do this. Blame the one you let do this. We take heat 24/7 and keep us healthy. Care about us and see what happened. Ain't no promises, though. Tired of y'all lying and capping on players for no reason. And that alludes to the fact that everybody on this roster is complaining about how the training staff has been terrible in Baltimore for years now. You look at the NFLPA report cards, and I mean, there's 2 teams. There are 2 teams in the entire National Football League who did not give their training staff A's or B's. And that is the Atlanta Falcons, who gave them a D+, and the Baltimore Ravens, who got an F- for this guy. And everybody's tweeting about how they ruined his career, how this guy sucked. There was no good relationship there. They've been telling them to fire him, and they won't do it. It just seems like the Baltimore Ravens are in a situation where everything's coming out to the public. The players are not fans of the GM. The quarterback is on his way out because the team does not want to spend the money that's needed to pay their MVP quarterback. And now the players are retaliating. And I mean, again, just to go full circle, it seems like the beginning of the end here in Baltimore.
Yeah. And I don't know, the training staff thing is so striking because it is probably the most important thing on that report card. Like there were different things about the food a team can give you, the locker room, like the facilities, the quality of the locker room, things like that. No, like the training staff is what is going to if you can take care of your players and their health in a sport like this, it's going to go a long way. And if you don't, it's going to go an even worse direction. Like you need to take care of them to build any kind of trust between the organization and the players. And to not do that is, I don't know. And it also showed up on the field. Like it showed up in
very true.
How the Ravens season has played out for a few years now. I feel like, they start off with a really talented team built around Lamar, and then things fizzle out because of injuries and because guys aren't in the lineup week after week. You don't need to look very far to see the evidence that that grade is pretty warranted. I also think about maybe 2 years ago, how strong the AFC North was and how especially after signing Deshaun, where everyone thought this division was headed. It was going to be a gauntlet. It was going to be one of the best divisions in football. And I don't know, the Steelers, you can say they're building something, even if you're not extremely optimistic about their ceiling, but the Bengals are great. And other than that, who are the threats in that division? Things have really, this path is really clearing up for the Steelers and the Bengals to battle for. And the Steelers do obviously have the I don't know, the worst roster, quite honestly. Like they are not on the same level of the Bengals yet, but I mean, they split a series with the Bengals last year. I think both those games were decided by a combined 10 points. Like there is not a huge gap between those two, but there is a huge gap between the second best team in that division and the third best team in that division.
Exactly. And that gap seems to be getting wider because think about it. If Deshaun Watson never reaches full form, which at this point you can't anticipate that he's going to, the Cleveland Browns are just going to keep collapsing because they have no money. It's the Russell Wilson situation times 10. There's no recovering from this if you're the Cleveland Browns. This is either this works or it doesn't work, and you guys are done for the next 6 years.
Right.
In Baltimore, you lose Lamar Jackson, you start over. So you have nothing at all to build off of. You have a good defense with Tyler Huntley as your quarterback. Sorry, I get it. He could compete with the Cincinnati Bengals in one playoff game, but he's not going to win you enough games to make the playoffs. The Steelers have a new quarterback, and they're on the up and up defensively. and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to remain Super Bowl contenders until proven otherwise. I mean, it's a bad time. It's a bad time for the Baltimore Ravens to take this hit. Last offseason we could talk left and right about how the Cleveland Browns were a scary team. After this past season, I have no hope
Oh,
for
yeah.
them.
Absolutely.
But it is, just like you said, it is a much clearer path to the playoffs for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season than I think a lot of people anticipated. And, if anything, it shows that consistency really is key, because the Pittsburgh Steelers do not take those lows. And even when they are a little bit lower than they usually are, this team's right where they need to be, because the other teams, they're either skyrocketing into the top or they are at the bottom of the bottom. And that's the Baltimore Ravens. They're about to join them, which is wild. And in the next 24 hours, it's going to get very, very interesting. I'm excited to talk about it on Wednesday to see where we sit, because the news that's going to come out in the next 24 hours is going to be bonkers. And I think it's going to show that the Baltimore Ravens are really not in a good spot.
Because I also feel like Lamar's not going to be quiet.
No, and the players aren't either.
Right.
Yeah,
they're going to have some stuff to say about how this all went down.
Yeah, it's going to be loud. It's going to be a good time. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, start watching. Watching. Don't and just turn the alerts on. Probably at allsteelers.com, I would recommend. And then, just do not let it fall out, because it is going to be a very enjoyable 24 to 48 hours. And then if they do non-exclusive tag him, it just gets started. Like, that's the beginning. Now the chaos really has begun. It's going to be a good time. All right, next thing I want to talk about is the NFL Combine. Obviously, you walked into the NFL Combine. I think we had certain ideas of where the Pittsburgh Steelers were headed in the NFL draft. Leaving the NFL Combine, I think we have different ideas of where they're headed in the draft. When you looked at the board, when you walked in there, and then when you walked out, what was your biggest change, and where do you see the direction of the Pittsburgh Steelers in those opening picks go now?
Well, when I walked into the Combine, I was almost certain that first pick was going to go to a cornerback, whether it was Joey Porter Jr. or one of those other top 4 guys if they could slide. But walking away, I'm much more convinced that they are going to go maybe defensive line in the first round. And then, quite frankly, if Jordan Addison's there at number 32, and he didn't have great testing numbers at the Combine, especially, his size is one thing, but I think we all knew that. But his speed was not, I think, where everyone envisioned that it would be. I think he slides a little bit. I was really, who knows where Kalijah Cansey goes. I've seen him all over a bunch of different mock drafts. I don't know where Keon White goes either. I think they're going to have some options at that 17th pick. And like we said, there's a deep cornerback class that, after that top 4, after those top 4 corners, so, Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter, and one more name I'm blanking. Keely Ringo. After those guys, we thought going into the Combine that there was a huge gap between them and the 5th, but that 4th best cornerback and the 5th best cornerback. I love Julius Brents, man, and he had a pretty good week, but he's still not going to be a slam dunk first rounder. He's probably a day 2 guy too. Even if he's rising up a little bit, like, they can still get some value. They can take some swings in those first couple picks and still get like a really good player at 49 after 32. I think they're going to go out on a limb a little bit in those first 2 rounds, instead of play it safe with maybe a guy like Joey Porter or something like that.
If Addison and Brents are sitting there at 32, who do you favor? And you could tell that Brents is the next corner off the board.
You probably have to go Brents then, knowing that someone else might take him there. But I don't know if Brents is going to go at.
I don't know either, but I think there's a chance after those testing numbers from everybody that their cornerbacks just start flying off the board in the first round.
It seems like everyone needs corners.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a loaded class. So if you get 5 or 6 corners gone in the first round, and you're sitting there with Deonte Banks out of Maryland and Julius Brents and like Clark Phillips sitting there at 32 and Jordan Addison, you're like, maybe none of these guys make it to 49. I think maybe you consider that one, just because I think those guys, at this point maybe are less of a risk than Addison, because Addison's numbers
Yeah.
were scary. That
Yeah.
4.55 was bad. And people
Yeah.
could talk all day about, oh, it's speed, it's not a big deal, blah, 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 blah. Guys make it that aren't, the 40's only the 40. I definitely get that. But for a guy that size, you needed to be fast. And you
Right.
needed to tell everybody. And that was the biggest worry and he talked about it at his press conference was, people
Yeah.
are concerned about my speed, but I'm going to show you. You didn't do that.
Yeah.
You didn't do that at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
he definitely didn't, and I think that's gonna cost him a little bit, but might help the Steelers a little bit.
Yeah, could.
Yeah.
Definitely could. All right, mine is going into the week. I think everybody had the notion that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to attack a tackle, and leaving the week, I think that has very much so changed. I think it's 17 if a guy like Peter Skoronsky, excuse me, or Paris Johnson are sitting there at 17, that the Steelers will highly consider one and probably will draft one, I would say, because depending on who else is around there, I could see both of those guys looking at the Steelers and saying, there's nobody better than me right here. You might as well just take me. But I think after that, the dip in talent is so concerning that the Pittsburgh Steelers have removed themselves from the rest of the tackle class, and they have now focused their attention to guard, not center, guard. That's the other thing. I think a lot of people have a misnotion that you could upgrade Mason Cole. Maybe you could. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not looking to do so. There is nothing within the organization that has told us or shown us in any way that the Steelers are looking to add a center this offseason. They're comfortable with Mason Cole. People in the locker room love Mason Cole. What they want to do is upgrade guard. Even if they don't do it this season, they have a guy who's an option if they have to replace Kevin Dotson next season. And then Dan Moore, I think, truthfully, I don't think a lot of people are going to like this, but after those first two tackles, I don't think there's a tackle in this class that is as good as Dan Moore Jr. right now. And I get that that's not very good. Like, the bar is not very high, but that's, it's not my fault that these guys do not meet that bar. Like, it's just, they're there. And I don't think the Steelers want to waste a pick on that. They met with almost no tackles, and they've met with a lot of guards and no centers, but anybody who could play that guard position, especially that left guard position, that's where they're highlighting. And I think that's where they're going to go if they go offensive line.
I wanna ask you, what do you think the odds are that they trade any of their picks and try to move up?
I would say it's low.
Mhm.
I felt very good about it until I started listening to who they talked to. And they talked to a lot of inside linebackers, but those big name early guys that I think will be there at 32. They obviously talked to Jordan Addison, who said to go get him. So he's an option as well. And then they talked to the corners. And yeah, they talked to those guys that could be there at 17. And I think their hope is one of them slides to 17. But they've also talked to enough of them that I think they're comfortable with 32. They're comfortable with names like Deontay Banks and Julius Brents and Clark Phillips and these real physical guys, Emmanuel Forbes, all of those guys who could be there at 32 or 49. And then it kind of gives them options. I think they want to target a couple of positions. I think Jordan Addison's like a flyer. Like, if he's there, they're just going to take him because Art Rooney loves him and Kenny Pickett loves him. And they're just like, screw it. Let's just do it. That's, sometimes you just gotta wing it and say, maybe it's going to work. Then I think they're going corner. I think corner is very high on their list. I think inside linebacker is very high on their list at those first three picks. And then I think inside lineman, like an offensive guard, is very high on their list. And then obviously defensive tackle and edge rusher. But I think those are just, again, like how the pieces fall. But if I had to guess, if Jordan Addison is not available at 17 or not available at 32, their picks will be corner, inside linebacker, and this is in no particular order: corner, inside linebacker, offensive guard, defensive tackle, and then I think they might trade back down and get an edge rusher. But I think that that's how they plan to attack it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Want to move on to, a different way they're gonna add players this offseason. Eric Kendricks, an inside linebacker from the Minnesota Vikings, 2019 first team All Pro player, has been cut today. Is this guy worth a look for the Steelers in free agency? Is it someone they should consider?
I think possibly. you got to look at a number of things. So for one, he's 31 years old. So you got to ask yourself, how many years are you going to get out of this guy? But at the same time, I just said that I think the Steelers are going to target an inside linebacker in the NFL draft, but I think it's going to be one of those versatile guys, the Trenton Simpsons, the Drew Sanders, the guys that could play the edge. They could play the middle. They could play off ball. They really, wherever you need them to play, they'll go do. A Micah Parsons kind of inside linebacker, which is, I think, exactly what they're looking for because they want that next, developmental piece of the NFL. And right now it's that position. If they grab one of those guys, I'm not sure that they want him to play every snap. So, and I think they also want him to move around. So maybe you do add another veteran. I think that, adding a veteran has always been on their to-do list this offseason next to Miles Jack. Kendricks is a name. Is he a big name? I don't know. I think that he's had one really good season, but besides that, he's very consistent. We'll say he had 137 tackles this past season, 2 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for loss. He didn't really do much besides that, though. He had 1 fumble recovery for a touchdown. He had 1 sack. Wasn't super impressive. 6 pass deflections. It was kind of like a very boring year for Eric Kendricks. Now, that being said, if he's worth $7 million, $6 million a season, and that's all somebody's going to toss him for a gap player that you could get 2 years out of next to Miles Jack, yeah, go get him. And I think at that moment, you're just like, cool. He's a cheap option. He gives some leadership because, Eric Kendricks has always been known to bring the leadership. I believe he's been a captain on that team for a number of years. You toss him in there. You let him teach the rookie, him teach Mark Andrews, let him and Miles Jack vibe together. And then I don't know. I'm going to say maybe. I'm going to say he's definitely added to their list of interest when it comes to the names they'll look at inside linebacker.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about the versatility. You can't try to do everything with one pickup, with one addition, but you need a guy who can do multiple things in this defense, especially given how thin this team is at linebacker right now. And the age does concern me a little bit. But like you said, short contract, not a ton of money. That would be a sweet spot for the Steelers, and this guy could be really good for them.
Yeah, I think that if you add a rookie inside linebacker that brings that versatility, you don't necessarily have to add an edge rusher in the draft as well because, a guy like Trenton Simpson plays the edge, a guy like Drew Sanders plays the edge. So they could fill that backup edge rusher role behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and the backup inside linebacker role. Now you kind of, you know what I mean? Now you have options. Now you're like, okay, look at this guy handles a bunch of positions for us. He's totally fine. We're allowed to do all the things on defense that we want to do. The Steelers don't run 3 inside linebackers ever, so it's not like they have to worry about that. So I think as long as you add a rookie, Kendricks makes sense. If Kendricks is your long-term answer, I think you're just delaying the inevitable.
Right.
But I think certainly a name that they could look at. And I think one that once his market value comes up and we have better understanding of what teams are going to be looking at, because this just happened 10 minutes before we started recording, then you understand if he's really an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But right now, without knowing any numbers, I would say yes. And I would say he's above guys like TJ Edwards. And I don't know, the list is not in my head right now, but David Long is a cheap option. Guys like TJ Edwards is not. And if you're going to look at your options as a whole, the cheaper side of guys is who the Steelers will target. It will not be these splash players. It will be the guys that come in. Tremaine Edmonds, too expensive. You go get those cheap guys and then you draft somebody. And I think that's going to be the Steelers' plan. All right. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think that's a perfectly fine way to approach it. That's all I was going to say. Just you get splash from other guys on this defense: Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt. Alex Highsmith. You can afford to go a little cheaper with this signing.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, we're heading out. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Like this video and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Check out all of mine and Steven's work at allsteelers.com, and we will be back Wednesday to talk whatever happens with Lamar Jackson. Enjoy your week. Peace.